Yeah, let's get this started, because as you know, Zeta made a video trying to debunk Cell versus Metal Sonic, and as we know, Metal Sonic absolutely ass-wiped Cell in every single category. I don't give a shit where he debunked Metal to, but I'm going to debunk this Cell scaling because this seems completely out of pocket. After all, Cell's highest skill is universal, and he doesn't scale anywhere higher than that. Alright, let's go.
Perfect Cell. On to you, Trick.
So firstly, Frieza blatantly scales to Universal as way back in the Namek Saga. It's stated multiple times that just in his second form, he's able to destroy the entirety of the living universe, as well as his existence being an active threat to it. And no, this isn't in reference of him just wanting to conquer it, because Frieza now has the power to destroy the universe, which implies that in his first form he couldn't, and between transformations it's his physical power that's changing, not his military power. If it was his second form that gave him the ability to conquer it, he'd always be in it. But prior to the Namek Saga, that's obviously not the case, as in non-combat situations, he's always in his first form. This is also not an overtime feat, as the language that's being used is that he wields enough power to destroy the universe, meaning that in his second form, he carries sufficient dormant power to annihilate the universe, and that isn't something he needs to recuperate his strength for. We can take this even further, as in his final form, the narrator states that his battle power is now of a different dimension, which contextually speaking would be higher dimensional, as if it was just some alternate dimension, the narrator would be asserting that his power is coming from somewhere else, even though that's his own dormant power. As for Cell, reaching his perfect form puts him at a tier of power that's completely immeasurable in comparison to the Z-Fighters prior to the 10 Days of Peace. This is corroborated by the fact that Trunks, who at this point in time is way stronger than Goku and Namek, can't even do as much as make Cell budge. It's even stated that Perfect Cell had reached a battle power of infinity, which is consistent as Toriyama himself confirmed that after the events of the Namek Saga, characters reach battle powers that are no longer numerically measurable, making it consistent that Perfect Cell had reached a battle power of literal infinity. Knowing that final form Frieza with the finite battle power was 4D, Cell, who's infinite in comparison to that, would have infinite 4D or multiversal plus attack potency.
Now you see, this is where the argument gets ready. He made a couple of good points of Frieza being able to destroy the universe, which I absolutely agree with. That would just give you Frieza the universal by default. However, the dimension skin is taken out of context, and it's going to be your burden to prove why they're referring to a qualitative superiority, considering Frieza in his final form does not show a qualitative superiority to anybody. Because consider even when he's holding back, he's still able to take damage from characters like Piccolo and Goku before he got Super Saiyan. Also, saying that Frieza's power level was immeasurable is a contradiction, since we know that Frieza's power level was 120 million. And of course, this was before power levels just became irrelevant after the Frieza saga. Now, however, I agree with the point that Cell's power level is infinity, but that would just get him to infinite 3D, right, and infinite 4D. So therefore, with the proof that you've shown, it only shown that Cell can either get to high uni. The rest of the statements you just completely took out of context.
Thanks to Death Battle, the scaling for Perfect Cell is not limited to a single continuity, as they use the movies, etc., etc. Meaning whether or not you believe or don't believe these series are connected to the main timeline of Dragon Ball, it doesn't matter. Which means I can use Cell from Dragon Ball GT, and you know how this goes. In Dragon Ball GT, Cell is able to scale to base GT Goku, as he was able to temporarily absorb him. This is important because GT Goku destroyed the Sugoroku space in his base form with a Kamehameha, the same Sugoroku space which is stated to have no time or space. This is backed up by the narrator consistently.
Just because he's able to absorb somebody higher than him does not mean he's relative to them by default. Because if he was relative to Goku, he would have been able to hold him in there, but the fact that Goku was easily able to break out of there just shows that he was not relative to Goku at all. Unless you're trying to say that the interpretation of Cell in Death Battle also includes Cell with that temporary power boost, which would just overall be just a horrible ratty argument. Not only that, both Frieza and Cell jump Goku and they have no relativity whatsoever. In fact, Goku barely was even trying when he was fighting both of them at once. So it doesn't make sense to use GT scaling when we only see him use a temporary power boost, which he has never used, and only lasted about 5 seconds until Goku broke out of it. So what is the final scaling of this? Cell is just going to be infinite 3D. That alone will just get him to high universal. I don't care if Zeta makes a video about me or whatever. I just wanted to get my point across because the scaling for Cell was just really ready overall. So I just had to set the record straight. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one. This was a pretty short video. All right, peace.